Thanks for joining us on Tandem Radio for a very special segment, By Design, focused on helping you understand how God designed you so that you may be healthy and productive in fulfilling God's purposes in your life for many years to come. Now let's join our host, health expert and public speaker, Dr. James Proodian.
Welcome to the By Design radio program. My name is Dr. James Proodian of Proodian Healthcare and ProodianHealthcare.com, where health literacy is the key to longevity. And as long as God has us on this side of eternity, my show is designed to educate you and your families to feel better, function better, and live as many quality disease-free years as possible. Starting off this week, Luke 1:37, for with God nothing is impossible. And I have a series of pictures that, of course, I can't show you that I use at my presentations when I speak in front of corporations and companies and schools and such through a company I own, Wellness at Work. And I wanted to start off with some visuals, because I think that over the last few weeks we've been outlining toxicity, and I'm going to follow up on that. But I really feel as though it's important that each one of us has a great visual demonstration of just the amazing potential of the human body. We think about holding a baby in our arms, and then we stand up at a function and go over and give our grandmother a kiss. And we think about the transition, the transformation, the changes cellularly and biologically that a baby has to make to end up to being an older person. And we have to stop and think just about that design, that amazing ability for cellular replication and cellular DNA to do all that amazing stuff, which is from neuroscience to biochemistry to anatomy, physiology, the way our systems are designed, and the show is designed around systems biology. And again, another visual for you: physical, nutritional, psychological, three circles, all entwined. And our healthcare is around the physical, the nutritional, and the psychological, which is what I call the triad of health. So we think about that baby, and we think about that really older person, and a lot of times, most of my audience is somewhere in between there. And throughout our life, when we look at the impact of toxicity, which I've been talking about over the last 3 weeks, starch, sugar, high fructose corn syrup, white flour, white sugar, white salt, all of the foods that man has put into our food supply and how toxic that is on our system. And basically, the fact of the matter is, I don't expect our government to outlaw, these types of products. I don't expect the government to start shutting down fast food restaurants. I'm not naive. But we need a grassroots awareness through education to stop the toxic food, the additives, and the environmental products that I went over in my previous shows that are truly causing a host of chronic illness that we're paying for dearly. It's time to take back our health. And I want to introduce a new word to you guys. I spent the last 4 or 5 days in California at a functional medicine symposium where Dr. Jeff Bland spoke, and B-L-A-N-D if you want to look him up. Just a world-renowned, one of my favorite educators and a brilliant mind in the world of epigenetics and nutrigenetics and the way genes are expressing themselves. So I'm going to take a second here, because the show is about biology and the show is about design, and we have to take a look. Let's stop and take a look at looking at your body. Let's open our eyes now. If you still had them closed, I apologize. Let's open our eyes. As our body as a web of information. We so many times think about, or in westernized medicine, as I'm a knee, I'm a shoulder, I'm a spleen, I'm a heart, or very single dimensionally. I want everybody to start thinking about their bodies, which is what it is, as an interrelated web of information, so that your spleen knows what's going on in the heart. One cell knows what another cell is doing. And if we start thinking about our bodies as web-like, and the way various systems talk to each other, that focus and that intent is, in my opinion, the future of healthcare. We need to start defining the difference between systems biology, the approach of systems biology to the management of chronic disease, versus the traditional diagnosis approach, which is I'm going to differentiate my diagnosis. I'm going to go to this doctor for this condition and that doctor for that condition and a host of doctors for various conditions, and no one's talking to each other because they're all specialists working on individual conditions. Whereas the model that's emerging, and Dr. Bland at Functional Medicine Institute out out in Seattle and the researchers out there, and this is not new to any of us, that our body and biology is designed to work as an interrelated web. And that model is what I want you to keep in mind as you listen to me. Hopefully you continue listening to me on my shows, because that's the attitude and philosophy that I take. This epigenetic model, and epigenetics is kind of a weird word. It's taking the word epi and sticking it in front of genetics, which is what basically means, it means genetic expression. And I think the easiest way I could define genetic expression for you guys is that if 3 people were born on the same exact day, and all 3 of those women, let's say they're all gals, they were born on the same day, they all had breast cancer as a gene in their DNA. Why is it, if that gene is supposed to create breast cancer, that means they should all get breast cancer on the same exact day of their life? But they don't. One woman never experiences breast cancer. Another woman tragically gets advanced breast cancer, age 30, and passes away. Another woman gets breast cancer maybe at the age of 50, 60, treats it, and lives the rest of her life without having cancer. That's called genetic expression. Our genes are trained or express disease during or in an environment of the perfect storm. So in other words, our body will express disease when there is an environment that allows that gene to express itself. This is typically an environment of high stress, toxic foods, poor assimilation in our GI system, hormonal imbalance, structural imbalance, spiritual imbalance, all of those imbalances working as a web inside of us to cause this genetic expression, which is defined as epigenetics. And it's spelled, so you could look it up on Wikipedia if you'd like, E-P-I-G-E-N-E-T-I-C-S. So that's an interesting word, and you may want to go and research that word. If I could teach you something this week, I've taught you a big word, and it'll sound really cool talking to your friends about it. So the difference between a traditional model that we're dealing with here in westernized medicine is that our system takes a very single-dimensional approach to diagnosis. Yet, to provide specific examples on how disease and what's happening in the disease world, such as osteoporosis and cardiovascular disease and rheumatoid arthritis and the chronic illnesses. Many times people will have multiple chronic illnesses at the same time. They'll have osteoarthritis along with having cardiovascular blockage, and maybe they even have some bone loss and osteoporosis. That's the web I'm talking about. And we need to start identifying this web, this network thinking, this network web in medicine and in clinical protocols, so that when we look at the system that a doctor devises, a plan of action, we're able to link it to a variety of chronic illness, not just single-dimensionally. So to understand, this genetic expression or epigenetics, which is what Dr. Bland was talking about this past week, part of his presentation included just an unbelievable statistic. For the first time in 1,000 years, future generations are likely to die at a younger age than their parents. And that's New England Journal of Medicine in March of 2005 reported that. So here we are, we're living in that generation where most likely our children, for the first time, that our children will have a shorter life expectancy than their parents. So this is remarkable evidence that chronic illness and the way we're treating ourselves, the choices we're making nutritionally, physically, and psychologically are having an impact right now on the generation that's in front of us. So the present approach, mostly pharmaceutical approach, of managing chronic illness, has not been successful. It has not been highly successful in reducing the rising amount of type 2 diabetes, autoimmune diseases, cardiovascular disease, heart disease, and cancer. So in the model that I'm trying to teach in all of my programs is that we all must learn, going back to my earlier statements about us taking back our health, we must use education as a model. Not a model that I created, but it's a model by design that our designer created. which is one that our bodies are designed to work as a web of information. It's not a single gene, rather it's a host of related genes that express themselves in a certain pattern, and it happens with altered physiology. So our physiology, the way our systems work, when there is problems in that physiology, it allows the gene to express itself, and those genes could be things like breast cancer. They could be heart disease, and all of the various chronic illnesses and deadly diseases that obviously affect us. So the genetic expression, it may not be the most exciting information I've ever done, but I felt as though it's important. I feel as though I'm talking to an educated audience out there, and we need to better educate ourselves on what systems biology is all about, in this case epigenetics, and where I feel as though the future of combating chronic illness at its root is inside each one of us at a genetic level. Now, going back to Dr. Bland's presentation and how it tied into my toxicity presentation, and I'll kind of end with this. He showed an amazing slide during this weekend that 10 companies control the majority of consumer brands, the brands that we eat every day, that we drive by every day. So we are living in a controlled environment with the things that we see, the things that we eat, and it reflects in how we feel, how we function, and how long we live. So today's program of genetic expression and the body working as a web, and that from that baby, or we say from the womb to the tomb, you think about all the biological changes that happens inside all of us. I think that it's remarkable. I think it's an absolute, of course, miracle that the design of this has a underlying message to all of us, which is it's our job to identify the things that could cause illness and for us to take a proactive stance. So you've been listening to the By Design radio show, and thank you for joining me this week, Dr. James Proodian. I would, if you'd like more information about me and Proodian Healthcare, please go to ProodianHealthcare.com, which is spelled PROODIAN.com, or healthcare.com, and you can feel free to submit any questions you may have for me at the show. Thank you, God bless, and be well.
You've been listening to By Design with Dr. James Proodian of Proodian Healthcare. To learn more, visit us at tandemradio.com, that's tandemradio.com, or on Facebook. And don't forget to email us with your questions. We'd love to hear from you. In the meantime, hope you have a healthy week, and we look forward to you joining us next time for more fantastic insights from Dr. James Proodian on By Design, a special production of Tandem Radio.